It's Kyle here, and today I'll be talking about a series that I just recently completed reading. That is the Interdependency series by John Scalzi. I will say before I start talking about the series in general, I have reviewed the first book in this series before, The Collapsing Empire, so I'll put a link up here, so if you'd like to check out the first review of that book, which I'll go a little bit more in detail of the plot in that book. This video I just kind of want to talk about my thoughts on the series in general. I don't want to get too much into the plot, because obviously I don't want to talk about stuff that happened in books 2 and 3 of the series that might spoil stuff in book 1 for you. So if you're interested in more of a plot detail of the first book to see if that might get you interested in the book, check out that video I mentioned. I think you'll really enjoy The Collapsing Empire. It is an amazing start to this series. Just to kind of touch on, it is a 3-book series, as I just mentioned. Book 2 is The Consuming Fire, and The Last Emperex is the finale. I'll say I really enjoyed how John Scalzi actually ended this series. Like a lot of times sometimes the last book will be a little bit of a letdown and it doesn't live up to the expectations. Like a lot of times, it's very common for a series that a lot of times, the first book might be people's favorite and then they feel like it goes downhill after that. In this case, the Collapsing Empire and The Last Emperex were my favorite books in the series. I still enjoyed The Consuming Fire a lot, but not quite as much as books 1 and 3. And I think I actually might say I enjoyed book 3 the most, just because as I was reading the book and I was trying to figure out how the storyline would wrap up, I had a few guesses. None turned out true, and I wasn't disappointed. I think the solution that John Scalzi came up to end this series was amazing, very entertaining, made sense with the plot. So the series has a very satisfying conclusion, which I know that some people do factor that in before they start reading a series. If they hear like the author kind of dropped the ball, they're like, well, why do I want to start reading a series if I know it doesn't wrap up in a satisfying conclusion? The Interdependency series does, so I'd highly recommend it in that regard. It can be just a general idea of what this book series is about. This is set well in the future, not actually in our area of space, but is a human society that was once connected to Earth, but has since been cut off. And basically in this section of space, empire has arose called the Interdependency. And basically all the human settlements within this area of space that's governed by this empire are connected by these kind of elements of space that even people living there don't really understand. It's not quite like a black hole or a wormhole where you basically, like sometimes in sci-fi, you'll have a ship going one end and it comes out the other end. But it's something similar. This flow in space that they don't really initially understand, but it basically allows them to travel super quick. So without these pathways, it would take too long from a spaceship to get from one settlement to the other. But with these pathways, it's able to connect all these various human settlements. Early on when this empire was being established, they developed a strategy to make sure all these human settlements would have to work together, and it would be facing with constant power struggles about which one was going to be the most powerful and who was going to rule the other ones. And that basically, the strategy is each human settlement would specialize in one thing. So like there might be a agricultural planet, or a planet that focuses on building spaceships or some sort of technology. And the idea is like they would do that one thing, but everything else they would need to live and survive would come from these other human settlements. Partly that factored into this is, other than one planet, all the other places that humans live don't support life naturally. They have to create these artificial environments. So it's not like if a planet cuts itself off from the rest of the empire, they can suddenly start growing their own food and all that type of stuff. Won't work. So it basically means all these human settlements have to work together and stay together in part of this empire to survive. At this point, when we've joined this series, when it starts, this empire has lasted for 1,500 years, so the system's working. However, as the book starts, these flows that they use to travel start breaking down, and this causes a lot of soul searching, because this means this empire cannot work, and basically most people in the empire won't survive at these passageways do break down and kind of break off the connections that humanity's built up in this section of space. And then that's the kind of event that kind of drives all our characters to advance the plot throughout this series. We are kind of looking at this plot from individuals at the high level of leadership. So we were following, for example, the new Emperix, Greyland II. And then you're following some very other high-ranking nobles, scientists who are all grappling with power struggles. Some are wanting to try to save everybody. Some are just trying to save some of the people because they don't think it's possible to save everybody. Some people are just very selfish and are just trying to exploit this to get the most power and money as possible while this situation is unfolding. One thing I'll say, John Scalzi is one of my favorite sci-fi authors, and one thing he does a great job, even in serious moments, he's really good about working in some laughs to kind of break the tension. So even though this is more of, I would say, a serious sci-fi, it's not like a comedy sci-fi, there are some very funny moments in it, but there's also some very sad moments, some very exciting and thrilling action sequences. Really loved, honestly, all elements of this book. The characters are really well done. Kind of our two main characters that we're rooting for is the Emperix Greyland II, who is really trying to save everybody and trying to figure out, like, how can we make it through this. And a scientist, Mars, I believe is how you're supposed to pronounce his name, who's also, again, trying to figure out basically how to understand this natural phenomenon so, again, they can try to save as many people as possible. You have a very interesting character, Kiva, who I absolutely love. She definitely is the character that has the most laughs in the book. She also cusses the most. She's our wild card, and whenever she shows up in the book, you just don't know what she's going to do. It's also one of those characters that you find yourself wishing she's in the book more, but in some ways I think if she was in the book more, you might actually get tired of that character. So you do have to sprinkle her in there, but every time she pops up, it's like, oh, things are going to get interesting. Kiva's here. And then Scalzi created an absolutely amazing kind of villain for this. Nadasha, I believe is how you're supposed to pronounce her name. But absolutely evil character, but at the same time, she's interesting. To me, that's always the great hallmark of a villain that you'll enjoy reading about or seeing in a movie or TV show, that you do hate them, but at the same time, they're so interesting, so intriguing, you want to have them in the show more or the book more. Sometimes I think people that are writing, be it books, movies, TV shows, whatever, remember to make the villain evil, but they forget to make the villain interesting, and then when the villain pops up, you're like, oh, this kind of sucks. Can we move on beyond this? In this case, the villains in this storyline are just as interesting as the good guys in this storyline. Really, like I said, no major complaints. Maybe one plot point that I don't think this is really a spoiler because I'm going to keep this very, very vague. As I mentioned, this empire we're studying is not in the section of space that Earth is in, but they do allude to early on that at some point this part of space was connected with Earth, and obviously Earth kind of, basically everybody in this empire was initially a population from Earth that basically colonized this section of space, but at some point the connection was broke off, and they're no longer able to travel between the two. So they haven't been in touch in thousands of years. A couple points throughout the book, they kind of tease some more information about this connection. And I kept on expecting even more to kind of be revealed, and I was kind of hoping for that. And it didn't really come about. They did reveal a decent amount, but I kept on hoping for a little bit more. Honestly, if they ever announced doing a spin-off series, I would love almost doing prequels to this series and maybe exploring how this colonization happened and a little bit more about the breaking apart of this connection between Earth and her colonies. But that was really my only complaint. Like I said, I really enjoyed the series. I think 3 books was perfect. I think he maybe could have done one more book, but I think 3 books was a good amount. I didn't feel like at any point where like the author was clearly padding the story just to make it last 3 books. Which in some cases when you read a series you can tell they were given like, all right, we want this many books. And at a certain point you feel like, does this really need to be in this storyline, or are you just trying to add some plot points just to make it last to what the publisher told you they wanted? In this case, it didn't really feel like that. I think 3 books was an excellent thing for this series. I enjoy short series like this because sometimes when I'm thinking of starting a series and I'll look at it like, oh, it's like 8 books, 10 books, 12 books. Even if I've heard great things, it's like, oh, it's going to take me forever to read that. Do I really want to make that commitment? A little short 3-book series is really good because you're like, oh, I can read that over a real short amount of time, or spread it out a book, every couple of months, and finish it pretty quick. So definitely would recommend this series. If you've never read John Scalzi before, I would highly recommend reading him. He's a very entertaining author, I should say. His books are always very entertaining. Some of his books are more humorous, some a little bit more serious. If you're looking for a standalone book of his to start with, I would maybe recommend Red Shirts. It's absolutely amazing, insanely funny. Another series of his that's just really great is the Old Man series, which is a lot longer series than the Interdependency series. But like I said, if you enjoy sci-fi, I think you'll enjoy the series. I highly recommend the Interdependency series by John Scalzi. Let me know if you read John Scalzi. If you have, what is your favorite book of his? And what's a great sci-fi series that you've read lately that you would recommend to me? Let me know in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time, and happy reading.